Hey, peace y'all, this is C from the Movement Fam. Welcome back to another vlog here on TMF. So thank you for joining us again, guys. You might have seen the last couple of vlogs we did. We did the one from Notion's album release last year, and we did one from South by earlier this year. So our manager Tiffany and I were talking. We're like, well, Notion and I have been releasing music for quite some time. Like the first track I released was in 2002. So we've been doing this for a hot minute. And we thought, well, over the years, there's been a whole bunch of stuff we've learned. Just about the industry, about different elements of being an independent recording artist. And we figured well, might as well start sharing that with y'all. So if there's anything specific, excuse me, you'd like to know more about, definitely let us know in the comments. And let us know what you think of this episode, because this one we're gonna be talking about touring and shows. So we figured that being that one of the main goals of being an artist is to tour, it only makes sense to maybe start there. So as a lot of you guys might know, we're from Melbourne, Australia, and now we live out here in Canada. I'm in Montreal, Notion's in Toronto, but we kind of operate between the cities. In Melbourne, we never toured as such. I've done a show in Sydney before, way back, and actually probably in 2002, one of my first shows ever. And in Melbourne, we sort of started as, I don't know how people do it these days, we started doing open mic nights. So there was this one open mic night that all of the scene, a lot of the dudes, some of them are super famous now, including 360 and Pez, we came up with them, and they were a part of that night. So we would go first it was every Tuesday, and then they moved to another venue and became every Monday night. And we went religiously. We didn't perform every time, but we went down to support, and when we did perform, as you can imagine, it's open mic, so sometimes the crowd is cool, sometimes it's whack, a lot of problems with the audio or with the crowd not being responsive. So that type of environment really taught you how to work the stage, how to handle yourself, how to handle all sorts of different situations. After kind of that started to get a little bit redundant, or that particular night stopped, and we felt like, all right, well, we need to get some more real shows. We never landed any major opening slots. I did in 2004. My friend Revelino and I had a group called Soul District. We opened for the Outlaws and for Obi Trice, so it was pretty sick. But we started working with bands. This was probably 2007, 8, 9, and going in 2010. So we actually got a drummer. We had a live drummer who had an iPod, who we had the instrumentals, and then he hit that and played along with that, and it looked sick. And we had all of us on stage, and that was really fun. So because we had that live element, we were able to connect with other people in bands predominantly, because we felt like the hip hop scene was, I don't know, mad crowded, and there's a whole other bunch of politics why we moved to Canada, as far as our music was getting more attraction and more love out here. So when we worked with the bands, these guys think completely different to rappers. The bands would do things they'd put on their own shows and then have a lineup of 4 acts, and everybody would sell tickets, and maybe the main band who was putting it on would get the lion's share of that, because they were taking most of the risk. They would book the venue and have to pay for that. Excuse me, they would pay for the promotion and the flyers and the posters and all of that. And each band who sold it would get X, and then whatever, $3 a ticket, $5 a ticket or something. Usually $10 is what that will go for. So we started playing with bands, and it was better than ever, because hip hop shows are traditionally, if you've ever been to a local rap show, it's 50 people going like this, barely nodding their head. As an artist on the stage trying to perform and trying to give a good show, it's really difficult when that energy is whack. It's really hard to turn that around, and it's just difficult to stay motivated. So when we're playing with bands, these people were just happy to be there. They were jamming, they were drinking, they were it was just a whole different vibe. So we really enjoyed doing that a lot. We would, putting on shows and drawing way more numbers than we ever would if it was just a hip hop show. So that was a real exciting thing for us. So when we moved to Canada, we had to start all over again. So we never got another drummer or anything in the end, which would have been cool. We have a drummer, DJ Digital Junkie. He's a drummer. He played on my album. He, with the idea is when we get back into shows again, which I'll get to, he'll be doing the live drumming and stuff, and we'll bring that element back. But just having that person in the back hitting something, and that physical energy that moves is really it's really, really cool for stage. So when we moved to Canada, it was really hard to get into the scene. We were foreigners, we're not from here, we didn't know really anybody creative. We knew a few people, Eternia, shouts to her, you know, but she didn't help us get shows or connect us with that many people or anything like that. We just knew a few folks. So over time, we ended up connecting with people. So the first tour we ever did, we did a few shows here and there just from knowing people. I did a few shows that we basically similar to Australia, where we sold the tickets, and we outsold a lot of the bands that were on the thing, on the bill, and we knew nobody. It was just because we hustled hard, and like, you know, people wanted to support us because we're the weird foreign Aussies out here doing this hip hop thing or whatever. So the first major tour we ever went on, or at least most of this was me. So I met this dude, Abstract Art Form, who now goes by the name Shay. Shouts to him. Cheers. Just shot a couple beer videos, so finishing off some beers. If you don't know, I have a side, my little other project is BAOS Podcast, so check that out if you like craft beer. We talk about craft beer, we do vlogs, podcasts, beer mails, reviews and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, I met Abstract on Twitter, and he asked me to set up a show for him in Montreal. And when I moved to Montreal, I kind of became the default Montreal dude. So like everybody was hollering at me to set up the shows here. And at the time, this was 2013, everything was popping here. The scene was crazy, like everyone was out doing shows. We were running an event called Hip Hop Karaoke on the side thing as well. So like I knew all the venue owners, promoters, DJs, local artists, singers, rappers, DJs, all that stuff. So I linked his Montreal show, and he was touring with this other artist from Toronto named Relic. And Rel is the homie. Rel is a very respected, legendary Toronto hip hop artist. So they were touring, they did the show, they went out east, did a bunch more shows. And then as they were coming back, Abstract or Shay hit me, and he was like, bro, this other dude, Ambition, was on the tour. He's super dope too. And he was like, he couldn't make the second half of it. He was like, do you want to come on tour? And I'd never been asked before, so I was like, fuck yeah. So I just joined them on tour, and we went up to Sudbury, Thunder Bay, and ended up in Winnipeg, where he's from, which was a super cool experience for me. We were gone for about a week, and it was just really cool to do like the night after night shows, which I'd never done before. And I learned a ton just seeing these dudes work and watching them, you know, watching how they interact with people, how they sell their merch, how they move with all of these people. And they connected me as the young guy with all of these people along the way. It was very, very cool. And what we actually did, I got some notes, I don't want to make sure I forget anything. What I actually did was we had a song with our friend Ill Vibe, shouts to Illy, called Road Trippin'. So what we did, we called it a Road Trippin' tour, and we pieced together the Abstract Art Form tour, which was called As the Crow Flies, but I was on like whatever 5 dates or something. And then we tacked on, we had a bunch of great shows because of the connects I had. So we opened for Raekwon, Mos Def, Odyssey, who else was it that whole tour? Bliss and Esso, Hilltop Hood. Hilltop was the next year. Bliss and Esso was that year. So we pieced it all together. We had a bunch of other shows along the way in Toronto, and we just made a tour out of it, and we promoted it that way. And that was a real cool way for us to, I guess, you've got to, the whole aim of music is to rack up as many accolades you can in a short time, so you can get access to the larger opportunities. So it's leverage. As newcomers to the country, we didn't have a lot of money to invest in stuff. We were super thrifty. That's a whole other video about being thrifty and very creative with your time and money. We were able to sort of finesse a tour out of that, right? And it looked super dope. If you looked at the tour poster, which I got a bunch printed out, I want to get it framed just because it was my first ever tour, but you see Mos on there, you know, Ray, Odyssey, Bliss and Esso, all of that stuff, plus going to Winnipeg. It looked pretty cool for like up and coming artists. So that was the first tour that we did. The second tour was called the Golden Tour, and that was with Relic, who I mentioned we went on tour with the first one, and another super dope artist, Fresh Kills, who's a producer and an MPC like artist out of Toronto, and Ghetto Socks. So Ghetto Socks is a legendary Canadian hip hop artist. I believe he's from Halifax. I'm not sure where he's from. I think he lives in Halifax, but kind of all over the place. So Socks, I knew Socks back in Australia. Like I listened to him back then. So for me, I was amped to be able to tour with him, and he was such a good guy. And I learned so much from these guys. So basically they did a Canadian-wide tour. We only got on I think it was 4 shows on the East Coast. So whatever, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and somewhere else. Guelph. Was it London? It was London. Anyway, that tour was super dope for us. Like Get Our Socks taught us how to sell merch properly, like how to talk to fans, like make sure as soon as you finish your set, hang out the merch booth all night, ask for the sale, talk to people like, yo, you want to cop a t-shirt, you want to cop the CD and stuff. And half the time I didn't really have to do that. People came up wanting to buy stuff because I'm the beer guy. People wanted to buy some beers and stuff, and it was crazy just from being in the proximity for guys like that, because Socks was pretty much the headliner. He had the largest profile on the bill, right? So another cool thing about that tour, I was able to bring in an artist, this guy Hezekiah, who's a producer MC from Philadelphia. I purchased a beat and a verse from him in like 2008, which ended up on my first album, and I had a sort of relationship with him ever since. And we started talking, and he wanted to come up here, so I got a promoter, an outside promoter from that particular tour, to cover his expenses and bring him up so that he could do the show there, which was super cool for me to be able to meet him. He did a video for the song, which was super cool. You know, made sure he had a good time and he did well and he made his money. So, you know, that was super fun. So that tour was really cool. So that was one to put that together to show you how the first tour linked to the second one just from doing it. And then this second tour led to our third tour, which was touring with a group from Chicago called the Palmer Squares. These guys were mad cool. So these dudes from London, Ontario, shout out to Kyle, who's from the group called The Nicest. Kyle was one of the main dudes bringing them out, as well as Dan Doesn't Sleep from Kingston. I can't remember we met Dan. Maybe we met Dan on this tour. And so Kyle and some other people from London were bringing out the Palmer Squares because they were big fans. They hadn't been to Canada before, and I was, once again, I'm the Montreal guy. I think Kills was on that tour again, so we toured with Kills a few times, and he, I think he might have actually brought me in on that one, and maybe because they were like, oh, well, C's in Montreal, he can link the show. So I linked that show. It was a whole bunch of fuckery. Their car died, like Palmer Squares were here, but Kyle, Kills, and my brother were all stuck in Toronto because the car died. So then we actually brought Crossword, shouts to Elbows, who saved the day and drove him to around the rest of the tour. And he's an MC as well, so he got on the rest of the tour. But that was really cool, right? So like the 3 tours kind of connected together, and we had these opportunities just from being professional. We're good at what we do. We put on a great show. We had professional merch. We have, like, you know, t-shirts, CDs, hats, beanies, stickers. Like, we had a full set. We had like printed, what's it called? Laminated sale sheets and stuff, like with the pricing. It was just like we were professional top to bottom, and I think all of those elements led to these next opportunities. So that was really cool for us, and it was great to connect with dudes from the States. These guys got hundreds of thousands of views online, probably millions actually. You know, they do really, really well. I saw the way that people were fawning over them. I'm like, damn, this is crazy. Like, so we didn't end up really, nothing much happened from that relationship, but you know, next time we're in Chicago, I'll definitely give them a shout, right? Like, they're mad cool. So then that tour, we have some other friends from the States, Bodega Brothers. So that's the homie Headcrack, who's super famous actually. He's on Dish Nation, which is a TV show. He's out of Atlanta. My boy Kino, who also is on like mainstream radio in Dallas, and my dude Travi, who was my main connect with them. And Trav and I have been talking. Trav wanted to come up to Canada for so long because Notion and I weren't able to leave from our immigration, whole other story. So we'd known him forever. At that point, we'd done 3 tours. So I was like, all right, and I booked shows for years in Australia, and even from the first, like I participated in booking shows for all of these tours. So I had experience. I was like, all right, I can bring something to the table here. So what we actually tried to do, this was a little bold on our part, we tried to do a crowdfunding campaign, right? That shit was a bad fucking idea. So I thought we had enough cachet to be able to pull that off. So we tried Indiegogo, because even if you don't reach your goal, you pay 9% fee rather than 3% if you get it. Whereas if you do Kickstarter and you don't meet your goal, you don't get any of the money. So we were trying to actually do a full Canadian tour. We were trying to hit Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, like the whole West Coast, all the way through. So I was taking on the risk. You know, we made Clarity and I, oh, shout out to Maya Clarity, who came on this tour with me. He him and I, we did like a promo video, we made like a one sheet, and him and I were pitching constantly. I had phone calls with a lot of venues and stuff, and it was really hard to book shows. Like Bodega didn't have a huge enough name out here to warrant like promoters just snapping them up, and neither did we. So we were hoping that someone would just believe in us, because that's what music is. It's luck and someone believes in you, really, right? Like, I mean, you got to be good, but let's be real, there's a lot of artists out here who are fucking trash and they're getting all the opportunities, but they work hard and they know the right people. Those are the two elements I really believe that makes a lot of artists get ahead when you look at it and you're like, how did this even happen? I think it's just that. So we took the risk for the crowdfunding. We failed miserably. It was somewhat embarrassing because it's very public, right? We were only trying to earn, like, it wasn't much, like 2 grand, 2 or 3 grand. Like, we just needed this me, Notion, and Clarity to be, mainly we were just looking for flights, because each show would have covered like a fee for the show and accommodation and stuff like that. So that didn't work, but we got some money. I think we made like 500 bucks from it, and that covered a lot of our expenses for this tour anyway, because we had to rent a huge like GMC Yukon car. We had the 3 Bodega guys and then me, Notion, Clarity driving around everywhere for I think 4 or 5 days, plus all the luggage and all the merch. It barely fit. It was super tight. So we took a lot of risks on that tour. We did, some of the shows were good, some were whack. And the worst thing that happened on that tour is that, because I was the driver, it was my name on the rental, so no one else was able to drive, and I fucked up and I ran out of gas. Like 5 minutes from the Quebec border as well. We'd you know, been just getting by at the time. All of us were a little bit broken. Like, that feeling was devastating. Like, I had to leave the car. I couldn't talk to anyone for a while. We had to call the CAA to get them to come and bring gas, and even that was like 60 bucks, then still have to go fill up, and we're just devastated because I kind of came, I think everyone ended up chipping in eventually, even though it was my fault. But you know, it was just so hard, and it was like, that's the thing with tour, like it might look super glamorous, but man, it's so fucking rough. Like, sometimes it's really rough. So that tour was cool. It was probably, it was really fun because it was with a bunch of homies. So we had a great time. Business wise, it was pretty rough for us. And then that was 2014. So those last 3 tours were all in 2014 from, I believe, Golden Tour was February, Palmer Squares was like May, and then Bodega was like June. So they're all pretty close. Then we took the rest of that year. We might have done some other shows. Yeah, we opened for Hilltop Hoods later that year. That was sick. One of our best shows ever, actually. Then we decided we should do a solo headlining tour. We felt that we'd done 4 tours at this point, including a couple of American acts. We'd played across, you know, Ontario, Quebec, went in Manitoba, and we felt it was just time. But we decided to do a regional tour. So I got that idea from the Australians. A lot of dudes out there I'd seen skip all the major cities and just do all the towns. So I was like, all right, what if we do like a 4 or 5 city town tour instead of Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, who are the big 3 cities in this area? Because cities don't care. They get so many shows, they just don't care. Like, they don't never draw as much. It's more effort, it's more money. So we're like, if we do a small town show and you get local artists from each of those places, it definitely worked out a lot better. So we did that. That worked pretty good for us. You know, we had a sick poster. Shout out to Josh Tell for designing that. You know, all the shows went pretty well. Sold a ton of merch. We had like my brother Notion's girlfriend at the time, you know, on the door for us. You know, it was Digital Junkie actually was DJing everything. He helped book some of the shows as well. It was great. It was really fun. It was February as well. Unfortunately, that was 2015. So it was really cold. I think that sometimes affected the turnouts and stuff. But overall, we made money. And we got to meet a bunch more, you know, a bunch of, you know, well, I guess I don't want to call them fans, I hate that word, but like followers, people who, you know, were interested in the music, and then meet a bunch of other fellow artists from the different areas, and it was super cool. So those were the 5 tours that we've done to relative, you know, varying levels of success. You know, from playing sometimes to 5, 6 people in a room to, you know, a few hundred. So I guess the real question is, why don't we tour anymore? Or why don't we even do shows? So we actually haven't done a show, I want to say since mid-summer 2015. I jumped on a show with Jonathan Emile here, I think it was 2016, opening for Royce the 5'9". I did a verse with him. That was kind of it. And the reason it was like, for us, and this is really the point of this video, is just as a piece of advice for up-and-coming artists. Like, it's so much work booking your own shows. So if you're willing to put in that time and energy, I felt that with the amount of time, energy, money, effort, resources, all of those things put together, the outcome was never ever worth it. In my opinion, barely worth it. More often than not, it wasn't. You know, you'd hustle your ass off, you'd go out in the snow and put posters up, you'd be putting money on Facebook ads, you'd be recruiting other local artists to perform and stuff as well, and then 5 people would turn up. The venue cost you $150 and you made 50 bucks at the door. So then everybody's out of pocket. No, they're not. I'm out of pocket because it's my show. Don't sell any merch. It's just not a good look. It's terrible. Like, there's nothing worse as an artist to play to an empty room. Funny thing is, I know comedians don't care. They'll go and play to nobody because it doesn't matter. Their whole craft is that stage show. From like the way that Notion and I take this, we love the craft of making music. I love this. I want to be here. I want to be writing, I want to be recording. I enjoy releasing music because I also do business. That's a whole other video we're going to do as well about art. You can't just have one skill set as an artist. So my additional skill set is the business and marketing. And that's what I like to do. So like, the shows were always like a necessary evil. Like, you had to do them. Like, you can't be an artist and not do shows. And when they're good, they're good. Like, I do enjoy it, but I hate booking them. I hate putting it all together, promoting it. I can't stand it. It's like, it's just a bane. It's just such a pain in the ass. It's annoying as fuck. I just don't want to do it. So basically, we stopped doing shows because we just realized, we're like, look, man, we're putting so much time, energy, money, and we're just getting nothing in return. We actually decided to focus on our online presence, like growing our Spotify, growing our social numbers, putting out music and music videos, and, you know, getting a real fan base online before going to try and do another show. Because some people do. I know Sunreal he's from out west in Canada. He said, or at least in his interviews, he claims he grew his fan base from doing incessant, non-stop shows. Cool, man. I don't think that's how that happens for the most part anymore. He has a rowdy, wild stage show. Ours is pretty cool, and we always turn a room. But I just don't believe in it enough. I don't believe that live shows are the way to go for up and coming. At least, and I'm talking hip hop. If you're a band, you have to do it because bands are all about that. I'm talking hip hop artists. I can only speak to the genre we do, and I feel like people don't like. Even as a music fan, like, I'm going to I would rather go. I only see like singers generally because I know they always have a band room. They put on better shows. I hardly ever go to rap shows. So like, I just feel like the interest in hip hop shows isn't as high as it was, and I think there's more value for us to grow our online audience and then be booked based on our performance there online, and people can see videos and all that type of stuff and get booked because we're getting some traction online, and then do a proper show where someone's just paying our fee. We have a flat fee, just cool, we'll come through, we'll do the show, bam, done, over. That to me is what I want to do. Yeah, and also, I mean, I found, I don't know about y'all, so let us know in the comments. I'd be curious. Like, I feel like the scene in Montreal, since 2014 is dead. I don't see hardly any live shows. Everybody I know, no one's doing anything. If I do see it, it's very few and far between, whereas 2013, 2014, it was everywhere. After that summer, it just died. Even in Toronto, most people I know aren't doing shows there. A lot of the guys I know, Ill Vibe, Clarity, dudes like that, they're going to Europe, and they've managed to get their way into the conference scene, which is our next step for ourselves, because we took such a step back to work on our music. I did like 3 projects in the last few years that were that. We've released one of them in 2015, and now a new album coming very soon. I mean, the downside of not doing shows, we're not really selling merch. We've got a bunch of merch in there that clearly isn't moving because you need to kind of be there. It doesn't really sell online like that. And I find it pretty tough to apply for festivals as well. Like, I went to apply for one of the biggest festivals in the US, and I was about to do it, and I started it. I saw a question, was like, how many shows did you do in your market this year, and how many did you do outside of your market? So I was just like, closed. I felt like there was no point. So I feel like by not doing it, I've cost ourselves a few other opportunities, but it just didn't feel right. And I feel like now we're ready. Like, we've put in our 10,000 hours. I really believe we have, or at least close to it. We've paid our dues, bro. Like, we are so fucking paid. We the amount of shitty shows we've done in multiple continents, like Australia and around Canada. Like, we've done, like, I would say it's probably 90% not good shows to 10% good shows, which is another reason. I just, like, most of the shows I've ended up being a part of have just always been average. Like, so much so that it's, in my head at least, it just doesn't feel like I'm not excited about doing this show. At this point, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I have applied for a bunch of festivals now. You know, we have some decent accolades. They're not crazy, but you know, my first album hit the top 10 in Canada and Australia on the iTunes hip hop charts on the day it was released in 2014. So like, that was pretty decent, but people, I think the concern with that is a few years ago. So people want to see what, it's like, Janet, what have you done for me lately, right? So yeah, if you're an up and coming artist and you're considering looking at shows, or you're looking at what to do, you know, do the math for you. Is it worth doing these, like, shows, the local ones that are kind of like that you have to put all the energy and money into? If you can get booked on someone else's show, I mean, go in. But just look at the sort of return on investment. That's really what it comes down to. Are you getting new fans? Are you meeting new fans at these shows? Are you selling merch? Are you getting additional opportunities from that? I mean, maybe it's better, instead of investing money. Some of these shows are pay to play. That's a fucking whole other conversation. But maybe it's better to invest the money. Go to A3C. Go to South by. Go to CMW in Toronto. Go to these music fests, go to North by Northeast, and go to the, pay for the pass, go to the conferences, go to the panels. We've done that so many times. We did, yeah, CMJ's done now, but CMW, South by, A3C, we did all of that shit. Like, and it was like, we did it in a small, maybe within 6 months. And everyone tells you the same thing. At the end of it, it kind of felt redundant, but I would like to go to another one now just to start. We went to South by this year, it was amazing. Didn't go to the panels though. I think next year we'd like to go. And just experience that. And you know, connect with people. I want to meet PR agents, I want to meet distributors and agents and all, you know, promoters, everybody that can sort of help you know, push your career forward. So maybe consider, maybe it's more worth you putting your time, money and energy into paying for all that shit, paying a few grand and going to South by for a week. So something to think about. That's just our experience. Let us know what you think in the comments, guys. Really appreciate it. Cheers for watching. Appreciate y'all. Give the video bam a thumbs up. Hit subscribe below. Hit the notification bell so you know when we drop that new. Follow us on social media at The Movement Fam everywhere. And you can find myself in Notion through all of that. That's it, y'all. Peace.